Hi guys. Welcome to episode 4 of the It's a Maddie Mad World podcast, first ever Halloween marathon. It's me, Maddie. This is day 4, and it's the night before Halloween on this cold, rainy night on all days. So tonight I'm really excited to talk about the movie that we're discussing today, because it's a cult classic in the horror genre. And it kind of kickstarted the early young adult genre of young adult survival fiction. And I wanted to pose a question as a kind of, not say quiz, but more like, I don't know how to describe this. Let me bring up the topic of control. So, control is a blanket statement. It can mean a lot of things. It can also be a form of power for a lot of things. So when control is taken away from you and you're kind of left on your wits to try to survive with whatever you have, how far are you willing to go for that sense of power back, that sense of belonging back, that sense of control that you lost, that was taken from you? What would you do if that control was suddenly flipped on its head and you were pitted against people you thought you knew in order to survive, right? So today I'm going to be talking about the 2000 cult classic Battle Royale. So yeah, let's talk about the background a little bit. Battle Royale is a live-action adaptation of the light novel written by Koshin Takami in 1999. This was released on December 16th, 2000. It was distributed by the Toei Company, and then later distributed in America later on in life by Anchor Bay Productions. This has a long cast of actors. I'm talking maybe 50-plus actors, including the students. So I'm not going to be addressing every single actor. I'm only going to be talking about actors and characters that hold relevance to the plot. And just to make it easier, to make it concise. So we have Beat Takeshi playing Kitano, Tatsuya Fujiwara who plays Shuya, Aki Maeda who plays Noriko, Takashi Tsukamoto as Shinji, Taro Yamamoto as Kawara, Masanobu Ando, who plays the crazy kid Kiriyama, Eri Ishikawa, who plays Yuki, and Ko Shibasaki as Mitsuko. So, this movie kind of rattled waters when it first came out. The light novel was, I don't know if it was, like, controversial per se. From my research, it was just your blanket stereotypical horror novel. But it wasn't until the director, Kinji Fukasaku, got his hands on the rights and decided to adapt this into a film that really started turning heads for people. So Battle Royale is what it states. It's a Battle Royale movie. So, in the near future of this movie, the Japanese government is at a decline. The economy is in shambles. And it's led to the youth rebelling against the elder generation. There's teenagers skipping school all the time. No one's attending class. They're committing crimes. They're committing theft. They're assaulting people. And the Japanese government decides, in order to quell this rebellion, they need to start taking matters into their own hands. So they develop this program, the BR program. At random, every year, one middle school is chosen at random, and one class is selected, and they are taken to a remote island in the middle of God knows where, strapped with bombs around their necks, and they are fitted with an ultimatum. You are to kill each other in 3 days, one person survives, or all of you die. And, yeah, if this kind of sounds similar to Hunger Games ripped this off, okay? It's literally right there in front of you. Battle Royale was literally written first. This was adapted first. Hunger Games came out later on, and Hunger Games is a blatant ripoff. Quentin Tarantino even thinks so. Fun fact, this is one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite films, and he said that if he'd had the power to, he would have made this movie. So, this centers around a kid named Shuya. He's the main character, and he's an orphan. His father committed suicide, and he's kind of left alone to deal with the repercussions of this loss and dealing with the world on his own as a young man. He and his friends are on a class field trip. He wakes up in the middle of the journey to find that all of his classmates have been knocked out. And then when he wakes up again, he finds that they're in this strange classroom, and they have collars on their necks. And that's when soldiers storm the room, and then their former Professor Kitano comes in and basically describes to them, okay, this is what's going to happen to you. You are all going to kill each other, or you're all going to die. And it's not until the first body drops, when Kitano spears a girl through the head with a knife, that shit breaks loose. And the reality of the situation finally settles in once Shuya's best friend Nobu's neck gets blown up. I'm just gonna state this for the obvious. This movie is gory as hell. And I'm not one for gore. I'm not one for crazy, off-the-walls, hyper-violent action films. This movie is violent, but the violence kind of proves a point to the film, if that makes any sense. The movie is violent. Don't get me wrong. It's a horror action film. Of course it's gonna be violent. Bodies are gonna hit the floor at every drop of the hat. But it's not like the violence doesn't have a purpose in this film. Every single character that dies in a certain manner. Certain students kill themselves because they don't want to participate in the game. They don't want to play into the hands of the government. Certain students are like, F this, I want to go home. Anyone that gets in my way is going to die. As we see with the bigger kid with the crossbow at the start of the games who gets shot with his own weapon. And then there's kids who are trying to survive and hide from everyone else so they can outlast the chaos. So there are different factions and different groups and different scenarios playing out with all the different students. We have Shinji, one of the popular kids, who's kind of the tech whiz. He gets some kids together and they decide, we're going to hack into the computer systems and we're going to break into the control base of the people that are holding us captive to disable the bombs, and then we're going to try to break out of here and try to send an SOS. Then we have Shuya and Noriko, who are together, and they're trying to survive, trying to find help, and they run into Kawada. Funny enough, when my dad and I first watched this years ago, my dad referred to Kawada as Rambo, because Kawada's been through this before. He and Kiriyama are the two exchange students of this program. Kawada is a previous winner of the Battle Royale program from a different school. I don't know if it's stated how he got into the games again, or if they just found him and decided to give him another round, but Kiriyama, the crazy kid, is the only one that signed up willingly for this. And Kiriyama's I just want to kill everyone because I want to have that power. Like, he never says a word of dialogue in the film, the character. Kiriyama's just silent. He's dead silent whenever we see him. He never says a word. And the actor who plays Kiriyama, Masanobu Ando, I gotta give him credit. He scares the shit out of me. When I first watched Battle Royale years ago for the first time, that scene towards the end where the computer building gets blown up, right after he kills Shinji, and he comes stumbling out through the flames, and then all you can see are like his eyes have gone like totally white, and there's just blood streaking down his face like Carrie. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that kind of scared the shit out of me a little. And I really have to give Ando credit. Like, it's kind of hard sometimes for actors to play silent characters, but there are ways that method actors can really utilize that silence in their faces to control the performance. Like voice actors in the industry for animation. all your power and all your acting comes through your voice. Your voice is your character. Your voice is the performance. You're not relying on body language or expressions unless you're in a motion capture suit for video games or CG projects, right? But with silent actors, you really have to rely on your expressions and your face in order to convey what you're feeling, because the audience isn't going to catch up on that right away. You're going to have to rely heavily on your facial features and your expression work in order for the audience to see what kind of performance you're giving. And Ando's performance is bone-chilling. Every single scene with Kiriyama in it, it's unsettling. This kid just has a straight blank stare. Every time he smiles, it's always unnatural. It's never real. Like, I know it's not real, but for the character I'm talking about, needless to say, Kiriyama's a terrifying character in this film. And so is Mitsuko. Mitsuko is kind of like the Regina George of this film if she had a bloodlust kick. And the actress for Mitsuko, Ko Shibasaki, does a phenomenal job playing the role. And that's not to say that the character is terrible either, because she's one of the few characters in this movie that has a backstory. So, the only characters that have a specific backstory tied to them are Shuya, Noriko, Kawada, and the running girl. I forget her name. The girl who runs. And Mitsuko. Mitsuko's childhood was straight screwed. It's straight up unsettling. Her mother tried to proposition her young daughter as a means of making money. If you catch my drift, because I don't want to touch that subject on this podcast. That's a subject I'm very uncomfortable with. But needless to say, the end of that backstory leads to a man getting his neck snapped. And that's the start of Mitsuko's descent into insanity. And when she gets into the games, it's kind of like she's taking her own control back as a person. Because this is probably the first time in her life that she's actually had that sense of power, where she kills people that she considered classmates. Yeah, she might not have liked them, she might have picked on them, but she now has the power to get her own sense of revenge back, if that makes any sense. Mitsuko as a character is so fundamentally broken, but when we see her committing these terrible actions, you can't help but pity her in a sense, because of everything that she's been through. And it's tragic in a sense that she's never known what it's like to have friends. She's never known what it was like to have companionship or meaningful relationships with other people. Noriko lost her best friend the first night because of Mitsuko. And Shuya literally watched Nobu die in front of him. And a lot of other students in the games had to watch each other die, or they killed themselves because they couldn't deal with the pain. And then later on in the lighthouse with Yuki and her group, one of their friends didn't trust Shuya because of an altercation Shuya had with a fellow student, where the movie makes it blatantly ambiguous whether or not Shuya actually killed this person, because it's left up in the air for audience interpretation. Did Shuya commit Did Shuya commit this murder, or was it truly an accident, like he says it is? We don't know, but it's up to the audience to decide. And when he gets to the lighthouse, when he gets separated from Kawada and Noriko, Yuki and her friends are trying to raise him back to health so that way they can all escape the island together. But one girl decides that, because she was a witness to what happened with Shuya and the other kid, she thinks he actually killed someone. So she poisons his food, but one of their friends takes the poisoned food, eats it, and drops dead, and all hell breaks loose. Yuki and her friends kill each other because they can't trust each other anymore. And it's literally just tragic. Literally just tragic the way these kids are forced to basically just go nuts on each other just for the sake of survival, because again, they've lost control. They literally don't know what else to do. It's either kill each other or die. They have no other reason to trust each other anymore. But Shuya and Noriko are kind of the exception to the rule, because Noriko has always liked Shuya, and she kind of got lucky sticking with him throughout the entire game. She would have been screwed if she'd have been on her own. She and Shuya kind of stick together to try to survive, and then they get lucky when they meet Kawada, basically Rambo, who's been through this before, and he's basically looking out for the two of them. And they're just trying to look for the rest of their friends or whoever survived to get off this island. But it's not until we find out from Kawada that when Kawada went through his experience with the Battle Royale program, his best friend, the girl he was in love with, she got him to kill her because the time limit ran out. They were literally about to die, and she couldn't bear the thought of him dying, so she literally forced his hand into killing her, so that way he could live. It's kind of like, what if Shuya and Noriko had been like them? If they hadn't been lucky enough to run into Kawada? What if they had not been fortunate enough to find an ally in Kawada and manage to basically survive to the end? But that's not where the crazy stuff ends, right? So, Kitano, as a character, Beat Takeshi's an amazing actor. I don't know much of his work outside of this movie, but in this movie, he's phenomenal. Apparently he's a really big name in Japan. Everybody loves him, apparently. I don't know what else he's been in, but he's like one of the best actors in Japan, from my understanding. Kitano as a character is unsettling. He's basically just stewing in this kind of like vengeance for what these kids have done to him, because he thinks society is crumbled, and he thinks that these kids have no control. They have no respect. They have no reason to listen to adults anymore, so why should he pity them? Why should he give them any sense of, mercy, I guess. How quickly he acted when he speared that one girl in the head and blew Nobu's neck open. That tells you everything about him. That tells you everything you need to know about the man. And apparently he's a deadbeat dad. He's never home for his family. It gets crazier though. So, towards the end of the movie, once the bloodshed has finally stopped and the Japanese military leaves and they think the game is over, they have a winner, Kitano basically gets cornered by Kawada, Shuya, and Noriko in the school. And then he pulls back this curtain on this painting he made. This was all for Noriko. He's had a thing for Noriko the whole time. It's like, oh my god, it's so freaking weird. It's like, so first of all, Kitano as a character is a hypocrite. He broke the rules of his own game to spare Noriko from being murdered by Mitsuko in the forest, and stepped in to protect her. And then at the end, he basically reveals that everything was for her. All the deaths, all the madness, all the bloodshed, all the chaos. This was all for her. All for her. All because she showed him a little bit of mercy way back when. So, there's a flashback sequence in this film that we don't know the real meaning of. I don't know if the director ever stated what the meaning of this backstory was. So, at an unprecedented point in time, before the events of the movie, Noriko knew Kitano from, I guess, school? Because, again, he was her professor at one point. So, there's a flashback sequence where they're getting ice cream together, and they're walking along the shore near this river, and she tells him that she took the knife that Nobu had used previously to slice him on the back of his thigh, and she kept it. And then Kitano says, "What do you expect me to do?" Or something like, what is one supposed to do with that? It's like, we don't know the implications of what this means. We don't know what their relationship is outside of this backstory, but to me, it's unsettling. So at the end of the movie, Kitano basically dies. He gets blown away by Kawada and Shuya, and they leave the island together, but unfortunately it comes at the cost of Kawada's life because he succumbs to his injuries and dies. And this labeled Shuya and Noriko fugitives of the Japanese government. They're basically outlaws, and they are forced to live on the lam and escape and try to live new lives together. So I don't know if my rambling has made any sense so far, but this movie turned heads when it first came out. It kind of unsettled the Japanese public. The director even had to entice kids to see it without paying for movie tickets because he thought his message was that important. So here's some behind the scenes facts. The director said that his movie was a warning or advice to the generation. So a traumatic event as a teen in his life led to his distrust of adults even as he grew older. His film was his parting words to the next generation. He kind of never trusted adults after what happened to him as a teenager. He kind of grew up with this mentality of adults cannot be trusted, and it kind of bled into the screenwriting of this movie, where the final message from Shuya is run, just run, advising kids his age to don't believe everything they tell you. Like, don't believe everything that they try to tell you. Don't believe their lies. Don't listen to their manipulation. Run. It's kind of harrowing, in a sense, that's his message to the younger generation. But that's that. The soundtrack was done by Masamichi Amano and performed by the Warsaw Philharmonic Orchestra, which is really cool to learn. So this is where the crazy stuff kicks in. This was the first film to be regulated by the Film Classification and Rating Organization, or ARIN, in Japan, with an R15 plus rating. The National Diet claimed the film harmed teens and called it crude and tasteless. This was the first time I'd ever heard of a government basically stepping in when a movie was being made and going, nah, this sounds too bonkers, fam. This can't be seen by teenagers. Like I said, the director literally told kids and teenagers to sneak into the movie theaters to go see the movie because he thought it was that important. So there's that. The Japanese government literally had to screen this film before release. They thought it was that crazy. This created a debate over the government action This created a debate over government action on media violence. Fukasaku told teens to sneak into the theaters. So, this film had a hard time coming to the U.S. for a lot of reasons in the early 2000s. So, this was supposed to come out in the early 2000s. It got a limited release, but due to certain real-life events at the time, when it came to certain school incidents, they kind of saw the film as provocative and intense and way too crazy. So the Toei representative withheld the North American release because of the contents and themes of the film. And it didn't really come to the US until 2012 when it got a national release, where I believe it was screened first in, I believe it was California. So this inspired almost the entirety of the young adult survival fiction genre, right? This was kind of the starting ground for a lot of the modern day quote unquote classics of young adult literature. Remember Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner, what was it? Battle Royale, Squid Game? All those things have Battle Royale to thank as basically being the godfather of what started it all. Because if it wasn't for the light novel by Kushin Takami, we wouldn't be here. We would not literally be here. Battle Royale literally doesn't get the credit it deserves, because it's kind of a crazy movie, but it's kind of a movie that makes sense when you watch it. Like, this is a movie you have to see in order to understand, because the themes are so prevalent and so intense that, yeah, I mean, I think teenagers should watch it. It's kind of insane, but yeah, 18 and older, like, young adult, basically. It's kind of intense, but the message is there. The message is very important. Oh, something I didn't know until I, saw, the comic art, which I thought was obvious. There's a Marvel comic called Avengers Arena, where it's literally an homage to Battle Royale. Literally. The cover is literally an homage to the school photo that's taken at the end of the film, where all the main characters of the comic are dressed in school uniforms, and they have the Battle Royale symbol logo in the background. Like, now I want to read the comic now, because now my interest is piqued. This, regardless of how controversial and how provocative it was for the time, this won a Japanese Academy Award for Outstanding Achievements in Film Editing, the Popularity Award, and the newcomer of the year for Tetsuya Fujiwara and Aki Maeda. That, regardless of how controversial this was, like I said, it got accolades, it got attention, it got media press. And you can't deny the amount of passion that these kids put into their roles. Another fact that I found out, 6,000 actors auditioned for this film. 800 finalists were picked to undergo rigorous physical training with the director to see who could last the longest during the finals. And 42 finals were picked. Like, think about that. You have a giant class full of kids. And I believe the oldest amongst the cast was... Oh my god, was it? I believe it was... Ando and Fujiwara. I believe they were the oldest of the cast at the time. Don't quote me if I'm wrong in the comments. But imagine that. You are a starting actor, right? As a teenager in Japan. And this is your big break. You have to undergo so much in order to get this role. And once you finally get that role, it's kind of seen as a movie that's so insane and provocative that it caused a lot of heads to turn. Imagine that. Imagine that's your legacy. Imagine being a part of that project. Imagine these kids or these people now, where they are in life. Imagine that, like, this was their start. That's nuts to me. So, regardless of how popular this movie was, it did get a sequel, and the sequel, from what I've heard, is dog shit. It came out in, I believe, 2003, I believe. Everyone hates the sequel. Battle Royale Requiem. It's regarded as terrible. It's dog shit. No one should watch it. I've never seen it because I saw the reviews, and that's all I needed to see. But, yeah. That's kind of it for Battle Royale. So, my thoughts. Why did I want to talk about this for Halloween? Well, for starters, it's a horror action thriller. It's kind of a survival of the fittest story, and like I said, it's a gory action romp, so I thought it would fit the theme. But Battle Royale just had its 25th anniversary, 2 weeks ago, and I kind of wanted to talk about Battle Royale because, like I said, the message is there. Like, the director said this was his warning to the younger generation to not trust adults because of what he went through as a kid. And this was kind of, I want to say this was his way of coping with what happened to him as a teenager, because you don't undergo something so traumatic as a teenager and then live the rest of your life just harboring all this horrible trauma, and then once you finally have the opportunity to put it through art, this is the thing that you want to tell the generation. Like, he had to have undergone something terrible in order for something like this to have been made. And let me just say, Fukasaku did an amazing job. All these actors gave it 1,000,000%. Especially Shuya, the actor who played the character. He went on to be famous. Remember the Japanese live-action Death Note films? That's that guy. That is that guy. He went on to have a freaking amazing career. He went on to be I would assume a millionaire in Japan for Japanese acting standards. He's literally one of the most popular Japanese actors from what I understand. Or at least he was at the time in the early 2000s. Because again, Death Note was just coming out. And then the live action movies for Death Note were coming out in the early 2000s. And yeah, he went on to be real big. I don't know if any of the other actors went on to do anything else besides Battle Royale. I'm pretty sure they did. But no, Battle Royale made an impact on history. Like I said, this was one of the first films I ever researched where the government literally had to get involved to see if it was safe for screening. That should tell you everything you need to know. This was the first, horror film I saw that was from Japan. Because, don't get me wrong, I've seen a lot of scary movies, but this was kind of the first Japanese horror film I ever saw that kind of left me rattled after. Because, like I said, the message is what gives the movie everything. Like, you always have to be vigilant. Trust those who you know you can trust. Don't let manipulation get to you. Don't let society kind of bring you down and make you a puppet. You have your own control, and they can never take that from you. No matter what they might say to you, you have control. That feeling of control, like I said at the beginning of this video, it's there. They can never take that from you. And in this movie, that control, when handed back over to the main characters, they take it and they run. That's what they do with their control. They take back their control and they get the hell out of Dodge. So, yeah. I don't know if this review made any sense. I just wanted to talk about Battle Royale and talk about the impact it made on film history. Hunger Games ripped this off, and, I will not be swayed otherwise. That's Battle Royale, and, I thoroughly recommend it for a Halloween flick. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if you are a fan of the young adult, fiction genre, or if you're a fan of survival stories or horror, survival horror specifically, this movie is for you. I don't know if you can watch it on any streaming site at the moment. I got this on Amazon for $12. There is a special collector's edition Blu-ray set you can find, but that comes with Battle Royale Requiem, so if you're willing to sit through that, I guess by all means, but more power to you. But yeah, I highly recommend watching this. It's such a good movie. You should watch it for Halloween. Join me tomorrow where we finally finish this marathon off with a staple of nostalgia for a lot of us. And we're going to be making a little trip to Halloween Town. Oh, I'm so excited for tomorrow. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.